show you something down here. Most of us will have seen this before. Like this little fella behind our little menagerie of zoo animals. This is an NBN box. Most houses, I guess, by now have got something of that now. In here is our wireless router. This box takes a signal from the street somewhere, the cables, and it transfers it to this, and this in some ways throws a Wi-Fi signal around our house. I know it's there because I take out my phone or my computer and I can look and it says Wi-Fi or no internet or whatever. I know something's happening because these lights flash. They're on and they flash. I can't see it. I can use it when I'm on the computer or if I log into it on the phone. I know it's there. Something in one of the TV things uses it. It's there, but I can't see it. I know it does stuff, but I can't see it. I can't feel it. I just know it's around. Wi-Fi. I don't know how it works. I mean, I could look it up and get a good gist of it, but it's a mystery. Over there we've got a Google clock. And I can say, hey Google, what's the temperature in Old Toongabbie?
The current temperature in Old Toongabbie is 14 degrees.
It tells me it's 14 degrees in Old Toongabbie. I can ask it lots of things and it will tell me the answer to many things. How does it work? How does it pick up the sounds of my voice, translate them into, I don't know, digital information, process that across the internet, and then translate it back into sounds that I can understand? It's mysterious. It's there. It's all around us. I think what Jesus was trying to communicate in his world, and still to us in his way, is the mystery of the reign of God. Like all this internet, Wi-Fi, it's mysterious. It's another world. It's a world that we glimpse and we see, but we can't contain or control. We see it in the beauty and the wonder of life. We see it in the joy and exciting moments. We see it in the beauty and the miracles. We see it in lots of things, but we can't control it. We can't contain it. We can only participate in it. And that's what Jesus invites us to do. To open ourselves to this mystery and this wonder, this reign of God which is all around us, and live in it. To let go and live into this wonder, this miracle, this place, this love and grace and justice, and be transformed. Jesus uses different images. This week in Mark 4, he uses, as he often does, images of agriculture, of plants and seeds. In the beginning of chapter 4, the passage before we read this week, he talks about a sower who goes and sows seed, a farmer who sows his seed, and it lands in different types of soil. Some soil is good and some soil is bad. There's soil where it's rocky and hard and it burns up, the seed burns up. Or the seed is where the birds can pluck it up. In some soil it takes root and starts to grow, but weeds and other things kill it and block it out. But other seed grows in good soil. The roots grow deep, there's enough water, and it bears fruit. He goes on and he talks about a farmer who sows some seed. I guess he's prepared the soil and garden, for it. He sows. And then he sits back and waits. The rains come, the sun shines, and the seeds germinate and sprout and grow. And in time there's a harvest that he gathers. The farmer doesn't know how it all happens, has no control over it. It just happens. It's a mystery. I guess in our scientific world we could go and look at the plant physiology or the biochemistry that's happening in those cells. The DNA that replicates and then is transcribed into proteins, and those proteins, like enzymes and other things, that create these processes within the cells of the plant and enable it to grow and do what it does. I guess we could look at each step of the way and understand it from a biochemical, physiological point of view. But we can't make it happen. There's still something of mystery and wonder. We plant the seed and we let it grow. And Jesus says the reign of God's like that. The seed is planted within us, within the world. We can't control it or make it happen, but it grows. Sometimes it's in good soil and takes root quickly. Sometimes it's a struggle. Sometimes it lies dormant, perhaps, like many of the seeds of native plants in Australia that have that hard waxy coating and need to be liberated by heat, smoke or fire. There's this mystery about God's reign. It breaks into human life through love, through pain and suffering that's transformed, through moments of wonder and grace that open us to something deeper and richer. He goes on and he tells a story about a mustard seed, or he says the kingdom of God, the reign of God is like a mustard seed. The least of all the seeds. The least, not necessarily because it's the smallest, but because it's a weed in Palestine. It's a weed. It grows out of control and it can take over the countryside apparently. This mustard bush is a weed, and the reign of God is like a weed that takes over. I guess for us in Australia, it's maybe like lantana, or down our bushland there's patches of bamboo that are taking over. There's lantana and there's other weeds. Weeds that are dropped by the birds in their droppings or blow in on the wind, the seeds, and take off. And they're horrible. We want to get rid of them, and bush regenerators down there are trying to poison off the lantana and clear it out. The reign of God is like a weed. One little seed and it takes off. It's not a particularly good image, is it? It's not particularly one that I like or grasp. And yet, I wonder if what Jesus is saying is that the reign of God is subversive. For those who have power and control the world as it is, wealth and fame and fortune and power and might and all the rest, the reign of God subverts. It's like a weed that gets into their lives and takes over their world, subverting it, getting in the way, transforming. The reign of God changes things. When people are grasped by this reign, when they see enough of it, when they're embraced by it, it brings transformation in life. When people find the love at the deep heart of everything, it changes them. when people find the justice and the peace at the deep heart of everything, it transforms them. When people are included into this reign and find new life, it transforms them. For Jesus, the people who were excluded, who were marginalised, who were pushed to the edges, or who were naive and uneducated and lost to the system, those who were abused and oppressed by the systems of power and wealth, who just existed, often at the fringes and the margins, are brought in and welcomed into this reign of God, which Jesus says is inclusive of all people and brings hope and life to everyone. This is what God's reign is about. And in many ways, Jesus tries to show people its power, its wonder, and its life. There's a story I've told before of a young man who was just horrible. He raped young women, was sent to prison. He got out, no sooner was he out than he raped and murdered another young woman. He was caught and sentenced, and even his mother was just so disgusted and so fearful of what this young man would do that she said, my son deserves to die. The world would be a better place without him. There's a young man in Melbourne in Australia. This situation happened in America, who read the story and was disgusted by it, but also something in him, I don't know, his imagination, his heart, something was fired, and he thought, if only this fellow, as bad and evil as he is, could experience what I've experienced, God's love, God's acceptance and reign, he'd be changed, I know it. And so he wrote a letter. He wrote a letter to this young convict in prison on death row, thinking that, nothing will happen. A few weeks later, he got one back from that young man who was taken aback that someone would write a letter to him. Not just a letter, but one that expressed love, that prayed for him and said, I'll pray that you can know the love of God that I know, because I know if you did, you'd be different. And he wrote back and he said, look, tell me more. And so they communicated backwards and forwards for a couple of years while he was on death row. And finally this young man in Melbourne, he and his church were praying, and he had this sense, I've got to go and visit this young man, this fellow in prison. So he did. He got together the money, people helped him, and he went over and he got permission to go into the prison 2 days a week for the length of his visa. And so he took his guitar and his Bible in and shared with this guy, Jimmy Lee I think his name was, shared with him the love of God. And in their time together, Jimmy Lee was converted and transformed. They spent many hours together singing and praying and reading the Bible and learning. Jimmy Lee confessed his sins and his evil and asked forgiveness. But he never used his conversion to try and get him out of the sentences that he deserved. Anyway, the young man's visa expired and he had to come back to Australia. They continued to communicate, and then one day he got a phone call at work from his wife saying, come home, Jimmy Lee's got permission to talk to you for the last time. He's going to be put to death tonight. So he rushed home and he got a call from the prison, and Jimmy Lee spoke. And the young man in Australia, he was in tears and he emotional. Jimmy Lee said, look mate, it's okay. It's okay. I know where I'm going, and I know we'll see each other again in this reign of God, which is bigger than life. It's okay. I'm not afraid, because I know God loves me and is with me. And that was it. The reign of God is all around us, a bit like Wi-Fi, only better. Transforming life in the world. The reign of God is here. We catch glimpses of it in the beauty and the wonder, in the joy and the pain and the struggle and the suffering of life. And God is with us in the mystery and the wonder of new life, of plants as they grow, as the sun as it shines, as life as it's lived. God is with us.